Well, I've made it to the end of Game of Thrones. I know who sits on the Iron Throne. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Share your take on Game of Thrones Season 8. This should be interesting, and as I've watched the entire series, feel free to spoil away anything that takes place in the show Game of Thrones. The way these work is that I give my general thoughts right at the beginning, and then I kind of break down specific episodes, plot lines later on. Because of the length of this season and it's more condensed, I'll probably go episode by episode for this particular video. With that said, let's get started. So, after 2 years of hearing really bad things about the end of Game of Thrones, I've finally experienced Season 8, and it did not disappoint. And by it did not disappoint, I mean it absolutely lived up to its horrible reputation as one of the most disappointing final seasons of a show that has ever taken place. I mean, right off the bat, when you know there's only 6 episodes left and they still have to resolve the walkers as well as who sits on the throne, there's just no possible way that that could be enough time in light of the complexity of storytelling for the first 4, 5, 6 seasons, how layered it was. And then you get to the end and it's like, all right, we've got a whole lot of huge plot lines we've got to resolve in 6 episodes. You just knew there's no possible way they could do the show justice. And the impressive part is it's not just that it was rushed. It's that what they came up with was so nonsensical that almost, I mean, I can't think of any of the plot lines that came to a resolution where I was like, that was really good. That was clever. Oh, I like that. Every single one of them had something about it was like, are you kidding me? That's what you came up with? Really? Nothing felt earned. Nothing felt like the natural, logical conclusion based on what had been set up before. It was just a series of bad ideas rushed to conclusion. And so it's a degree to which you, like, I legitimately wonder, like, did nobody walk in and be like, guys, these are not good ideas. Like this, you will infuriate people if you go down this path, because this does not feel like it makes doing justice to any of these characters. And some of these just feel like you're vindictively ruining characters and undoing everything that you've worked towards throughout the entire show. It feels like you're just undoing it, and I'm not really sure why. Did no one go and yell that at them, or did they ignore it? You know, I've heard 1,000 people speculate as to what exactly went on with the last 2 seasons, and they were bored with it. They had their Star Wars deal. They were ready to move on. HBO wanted them to go on longer, but they said they could do it in 6 episodes. I've heard all kinds of theories. I have no idea which is the right one. All I know is that everybody that's been saying that they botched the end of the show, I am on your side. I've had a bunch of conversations with people over the last 2 weeks since I finished the show, and people have kind of tried to, there's a percentage of people that like actually liked the ideas and thought it made sense. It was just rushed. But I can't think of any of these plot lines, any of these resolutions where I think, yeah, I mean, I could have agreed. I could have liked that if you just gave it a little bit more time. I look at almost every single thing they did and I went, I just don't buy it. That's not satisfying. Of all the people that could do that, of all the ways that you could get here, of all the people to put on the throne, why would you decide to go down this particular path? So I was disappointed, as most of you were. But keep in mind, I only spent 2 months watching the show, 2-3 months watching it. Some of you spent 8 years watching it. So my disappointment, for how much I was disappointed by it, knowing it was going to be bad, I could only guess as to the level of like heartbreak, disappointment that some of you felt after years years of watching this show, then having a 2-year gap between seasons 7 and 8, and then you get those 6 episodes. I can't believe still some of the choices they made. And I'd had a couple things spoiled to me. I'd heard a couple things, like I knew Dany was gonna turn evil in the end. And even watching the first 3 episodes of the season, I thought I knew how that was going to work out. Of she's unwilling to surrender the throne to Jon, so there's a conflict there, and though she turns evil where something along those lines. But it wasn't even that. Like, even with what they do, they even set up better versions of what they went with, and what a train wreck, what a nightmare of unsatisfying conclusions and bad answers that I just can't believe that this is what they came up with. It's, yeah, certainly on my list of worst series finales of all time and final seasons of all time. From there, let's just kind of walk through the season. So episode 1, Winterfell, and considering the season was only 6 episodes, I'm still amazed at how poorly they used their 6 episodes. So this episode is a whole bunch of reunions and some exposition where things are told to people that we as the audience already know. And so we just see their reaction to this information. And the plot progresses just a little bit. So what do I mean by all of that? Jon and Daenerys arrive in Winterfell. Jon is reunited with Arya. That's kind of fun. Sam tells Jon his true identity, so we see his reaction to that, but we already knew that information, so it's not a big reveal for us. And then we see the guys that were at the wall journeying back, so some bad stuff happens, so we know there's not a lot of time before White Walker's going to show up in Winterfell. But considering there's only 6 episodes, and I was like, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page right now, like, what was in there that I needed to catch? There's not a lot. I mean, it's just kind of like moving a few pieces around. I guess Theon rescues Yara, so they kind of let off this plot point of he's going to go and rescue his sister. And previous seasons of Game of Thrones, that would be like the multiple episode arc of Theon having to get somewhere, stuff happening, would be like, feel like this major deal. No, he just kind of goes in there. It's like one scene. How do we resolve her getting kidnapped a season ago? Just one scene, just kind of goes in there and rescues her. We're all good. That's it. That's all that required. And I mean, that's kind of perfect example of where this show kind of went off the rails after season 6, where there's all these dangling plot threads and they just kind of go, let's just write a scene where that's resolved. As this one thing happens and it's done. We're okay. Whoop, done. Yeah. Theon just gets her, comes back, and then he heads back to Winterfell. That's it. And I don't know. It's like just with how the show worked, where for so long, someone needing to get from one place to the other took forever. And you're just waiting for the payoff of this person to arrive at this place and these characters to be reunited. And all of a sudden, major plot lines, it's like a throwaway scene. Oh yeah, crap, the show's going to end. We better figure out what we're going to do with Yara. There, she's rescued. Boom, done. Okay. But you know, there's things that happen here that matter, like Sam discovers that Daenerys killed his brother and dad, but once again, we already knew that. So all we're seeing is the reaction to information we already had. It's kind of like the whole episode is a series of those types of things. And we've only got 6 episodes left, and it's spent retelling us or telling characters on the show things we already know. Not the best use of 1/6 of your final season. Then we have episode 2, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. And this episode is designed to be kind of a hangout episode. They know the army is getting very close. And so this episode kind of pauses to give kind of all these final interactions for a bunch of our characters before the final showdown where a bunch of them are going to die. And so you get to see how everyone responds to them assuming this could be it, them believing this could be my last night. How would each of them respond to that? Which that's a good idea for an episode. That's a nice moment to have that provides these interactions that are fun to see. And at the same time, when you only have 6 episodes, it's very weird to spend 1/6 of your time doing this. Totally fine if we weren't like saying we're gonna do this season in 6 episodes. But because they're rushing so much stuff, it's like, wait, we resolved Yara plotline in one scene, and then we dedicate an episode to people sitting around drinking and eating together and having conversations with one another. Like a full episode to that. It's weird. And this is probably one of the better episodes of the season simply because it's just nice to have the calm before the storm. And when you've had a show where you have all these characters that have been in so many wildly different places, gone on so many different adventures, and then finally 80% of your characters are all in one place and they can interact and you can see some of this banter. That's a nice payoff in and of itself without needing to be a big gigantic battle. There's payoff simply in seeing them talk to one another and resolve little interactions and have little moments that are really neat. Jaime knighting Bran of Tarth, and just seeing some of them have moments of levity, just joking. Seeing their Theon kind of back in Winterfell and kind of being accepted, at least by 1 or 2 people. And there's elements to that they're enjoyable to watch. But when you only have 6 episodes, it's very weird to spend this much time on this stuff. Then you just get some weird things in here where you have Arya seducing Gendry with, I get it. She actually is grown up. She is older. It doesn't change the fact that it's inherently weird when you have a character that's a little girl at the beginning of the show, and then you're going all out like, let's show her become a woman. Like, it's kind of a weird thing to do. And she doesn't, I understand the actress, how old the actress actually is and everything like that, but how old does she look? And in the context, I get it, but I really don't get it also at the same time. And you get some other things in there where they're trying to set up the finale with Daenerys trying to make friends with Sansa. Sansa says the North has vowed to never bow the knee again. Trying to set up where the end of the show is headed, but at the same time feeling like suddenly Sansa is highly principled. Of all the ways that things she learned from Littlefinger, all the ways she's learned to be adaptable, everything they've been through, this moment that they're in where there's literally like an army of the dead right around the corner. And this is the moment where she's like, we will never bow the knee again. Like, what? I don't really even understand exactly where this highly principled stance from her, of all people, is coming from. And I think the nicer moments are, when you get Sam giving the Tarly sword to Jorah and things like that, where it's just these characters that have only had a couple scenes together. We've literally watched them for 70 episodes, but they've only been together a couple of times, a few times here. And then you see kind of a mutual respect and different things between them that is kind of nice in the way some of these moments played out. But like I said, this is an episode that might be the best of the season simply because it's nice to see these interactions. But it's weird to do it in a season where you're only giving us 6 episodes and you pause for a full episode to be like, hey, let's all have drinks together. And so the other important thing that happens in this episode is that Jon tells Daenerys who he really is. That's going to lead to some problems with their future relationship and all of their connections to one another, since she really feels entitled to that throne. He has an actual strong claim to it. So we got a number of different problems here that are going on with all of this. And this is one of those ones where you got to go like, of all the times to say this information, why would you say it now? Like, why would Bran need to tell Sam when he did? Why would Sam need to tell Jon when he did? Why would Jon tell Daenerys when he did? When, like, all of the, like, we are We are a day. We are a night. We're 2 days away from Army of the Dead arriving. Who sits on the throne? Who's entitled to the throne? Does not matter if we all die from the Army of the Dead. It doesn't matter at all. And having that information only distracts. Hey, Jon Snow, you've spent years focused on this moment. By the way, your whole life is a lie. Your father is not your father. This is your real lineage. This lady you're kind of in love with. Here's why that's really complicated now. This is why it's going to be a big problem. I'm going to tell you right now, right when you need a clear mind thinking about the thing you've been focused on for years, let me put something in your head that's really going to jack with you a little bit. Why would you tell him then? And then if you're Jon, why would you tell Daenerys the day before, hey, we're going to ride on dragons tomorrow to battle the Army of the Dead, but let me really screw with your head a little bit, complicate our relationship right before all of that. Why would you do that? Either one of you could die the next day, and so why would you complicate this and mess up the thinking? And if you do, both of you survive, that's a better time to say, by the way, got a really complicated little situation for you. You're my aunt. Yeah, turns out your brother, my dad, not dad, actually. Your brother is my dad. My dad is actually my uncle, and his sister is my mom. Wild times, but hey, complicate. Why wouldn't you just wait? But they decided not to do that. So just in and of itself, that was I'm watching it being this feels like weird melodrama stuff. This is the sort of stuff they do on the CW where you're trying to ratchet up the tension and the drama. So you drop information at a point in time where it's going to complicate what's about to happen. But in real life, you can make decisions on when you share information and you stop and think, is it the best time to say this? And you calculate that in, especially we're about to go to war. The whole continent, the whole country could be destroyed by this Army of the Dead. Who sits on the throne does not matter if that happens. So why would this information be urgent in light of the existential Army of the Dead threat? That's the stuff that it's CW writing. It's soap opera drama. It's not really what Game of Thrones has been known for. Or when that happens, it's because you have a Littlefinger type character or a Cersei, these manipulative evil characters that they know the power of information. And so therefore they're dropping it at a point in time to cause trouble. But it's part of it's the whole point is that it's a bad idea to do it, but it's manipulation. Here it's just, they're trying to add a little bit more tension and conflict. That brings us to episode 3, The Long Night, and the full resolution to one of the 2 main plot lines of the entire show that happens in one episode and feels inconsequential once it's done, which is even weirder. How you have this show that we as the audience know information that the characters don't really have. From the opening scene of this, we know something, see the looming danger. And then each of these characters that see something, we see what whether it's Sam, whether it's Jon and the wildlings, we see all of that. And we have knowledge even beyond them. A baby gets taken and we see what happens to it. So we have knowledge beyond any of the characters of the show of how dangerous all of this is. And we finally get to this situation where everyone gets to see how bad it is. And it's resolved in one episode. And it's like they forgot about it by the time we get to episode 4. Anyway, let's talk about this episode in itself. We finally have the big showdown. And to its credit, it is an hour and 20 minutes straight of battle. So it's not like a non-epic battle. It is epic in scope, size, sequence, everything that you can do. It is a long battle. But on a plot level, it's very thin because it's legitimately, they just keep getting beat up. They're losing. All of their friends that died come back, and then they win because of Arya. That's the whole thing. And again, that's pretty thin for what's legitimately this big gigantic threat that's been running throughout the entire show. That for multiple seasons now, you've had Jon Snow doing everything in his power to try and get an army together, get the weapons to be able to defeat this army. And then it all boils down to one lucky assassin move from Arya. So we kind of go into the battle, and I guess a lot of people complained it was too dark. I didn't have that problem. I watched it at like midnight at my house, and my TV's pretty new, so it's still pretty bright. So I could see what was going on. That wasn't necessarily the problem that I had while watching it. I think my problem was that I just don't think it was written very well. I mean, right off the bat, this should have been like multiple episode arc. I mean, the whole season really should have been about the back and forth of trying to slow down and stop the dead and trying to come up with a scheme to be able to beat them. It should have had back and forth, little victories that lead to major defeats afterwards. A bunch of other stuff should have happened in here in the process of trying to defeat them. But even if you just kind of go with the way it plays out, starts off and our witch lights up all the swords of our horsemen, and you go, oh yeah, that's all right, that's nice. And then they run into battle, and immediately, like, all of them they're killed, except the ones that we don't want dead. Like they charge forward and their swords immediately go out. It was like a cool shot. And why is this whole thing set at nighttime? So, I guess so we could do the cool shot of the flaming swords charging forward and then being extinguished, I guess. And then you literally see a wall of zombies like hit the front line and just decimate our heroes. And the dragons do a couple of dive bombs that are really nice, and then they get lost in the clouds. So they become fairly ineffectual for like 45 minutes. They don't do much of anything. And so eventually our troops all have to retreat to the walls, and then, you know, they light the trench. Our witch lady comes out, lights the trench. She's able to kind of light that deal up. So it's, okay, that's a nice moment that she's able to do something, kind of redeem herself for being the worst and killing a kid. And that slows them down just a little bit. And then they get past that, and once again, the zombies start crawling the walls, destroying people left and right, but none of our favorite heroes die just yet. You know, even at the beginning, Jorah was in the first charge up where all these guys on the horses die, and Jorah is one of the ones that can escape it. Of course, because it's too early for him to die. But zombies get over the walls, kill a bunch of people. A zombie giant gets inside, gets killed by the little girl. Like, the little girl of all people is able to kill the giant, which I guess is kind of nice to give her a moment, make her actually be able to do something that's kind of brave. The logic of that, I mean, that feels very much like Hollywood blockbuster stuff, not Game of Thrones stuff. Game of Thrones doesn't normally have little girls getting like, yeah, she took on a giant. She died, but she was able to take him out. Felt like a very weird direction to take things. And then we keep seeing our heroes losing, getting cornered. And I kept thinking some of these characters, they were going to slowly kill off major characters throughout the entire episode because so many of them got cornered and were like pinned down by 100 zombies, and they're just doing this, and they've been doing this for an hour straight, and then there's 30 minutes left in the episode, and like you get one of the problems. When I'm sitting here talking, I'll just start playing with things with my hand. Sorry about that. I'll put it further away so I don't doodle with it as much and drop it and start talking about what I'm doing while talking to you. So it looks like our heroes are gonna die, and then after they're already overrun and out of energy, then Night King guy lifts his arms, raises us up, thousands of new soldiers for his side that are everywhere. Wherever our heroes are, wherever people are at, they're now surrounded by all of their dead friends who are lifted back up as new zombie killers as part of that army. And then there's still like 15 more minutes left because it's all in slow-mo. And you still see Brienne swinging his sword. Still see Jaime swinging his sword straight, and not going down. Someone has to die. So Jorah dies. Theon ends up dying. It's kind of nice that he gets his redemptive arc in there. That's nice. It's nice that Jorah got to die, saving his queen. Okay, that's nice. But like some of these other characters, like there's no reason that they didn't die. besides, we needed some characters left for the end of this. And I just don't even understand why they wrote this episode the way they did, to have like such utter failures for our heroes. And they're so overwhelmed, should be dead. And then out of the, like, they set up this little line where Arya is told, you know, you're not going to die yet. We've got to kill more people with blue eyes. And so she runs off. It's like, oh, okay, so she's going to be the one that takes out the Night King. Okay. And in the middle of all this, Jon Snow gets stuck, like in the middle of a bunch of zombies, and he's running through the castle, and there's a dragon in the way. So he can't get to the Night King. Theon's been killed. Bran's about to die. And then out of nowhere, Arya shows up, kills Night King. Which, like, there's some ideas in that are kind of fun and kind of nice. This idea that she has this assassin training, she could sneak up, she can, like, be really helpful. But when you set it up as everyone else has failed and out of the blue, she just shows up and saves the day, it's just not satisfying remotely. You have characters that have spent 7.5 seasons talking about trying to stop these White Walkers. Like Jon, that's been his whole thing. And then you get to this episode, and Jon does nothing. Like, he's flying around on the dragon, drops some napalm a couple times, and then gets lost in the clouds, crashes on the ground, and can't get there in time. The guy that it's actually satisfying, the guy that's been staring down the Night King, the guy that's been getting everybody together, has nothing to do with his defeat, really. Just like such a minor piece to this whole story of this episode and the final victory. It's not like he recruited Arya. It's not like he went, Arya, like, I don't know why you're so good at killing people, but I want you to hide in the tree so that if he ever shows up, you pop out of the tree and do your assassin trick. Like, he had nothing to do with it. It was just like the witch lady was like, hey, you blue eyes, go kill some blue eyes. And so she goes, oh, I'll go run over to Bran and maybe I can save the day. And it's like, of all the people, like, I just, like, unexpected, I guess. Does it feel like, of all the people set up for it to be interesting, of all the people that had an arc getting to that moment, of all the people with a tie to the White Walkers, no, let's go with this other person over here. And I think what makes it so offensive is that you could tell they were just trying to be unexpected and subvert expectations. And with the first, like, 4, maybe five seasons of the show, there was so much kind of subverting expectations, but it was always done in a way where it felt like you get to that moment where something happens that was unexpected. You thought these people, you thought Robb Stark was going to be victorious. You thought we were leading toward, nope, he's dying at a wedding. We thought Ned Stark would, nope, he got his head cut off. And once those events happened that subverted our expectations, you went, oh, that really does make sense in light of what they actually set up. There's the thing we wanted, the victory that was in front of them, the carrot that they were pursuing, the thing that the audience was hoping for. But then there's all the groundwork that was laid for something smarter to take place. With the layered, complex storytelling, it was more satisfying. And this felt like them trying to, like, surprise, we subverted your expectations, but without doing any of the hard work. Without earning the moment. It was just, boom, she's just there. She just shows up and stabs him. He's dead. Boom. This plot line that's been going on a long time, just over with, done, resolved. Here we go. Let's move on to our next thing. And there's nothing satisfying about her doing that or it taking place in this manner. And so, I mean, just of all the ways to resolve all of this, Arya? Really? Episode 4, The Last of the Starks. And this one, to me, is where I think, like, as I was watching it, I actually didn't mind the first 3 episodes. I just kind of crapped a little bit on the long night. As I was watching it, I was like, okay, whatever. Season 7 was rushed. I know we're rushing it. This isn't as necessarily as embarrassing as potentially it could be. And this was the episode where I was like, we're starting to lose things a little bit. Like, we're really starting to spiral out of control here. So we get to this episode, and the first 45 minutes of it, the first half of the episode, it's a long episode, but the first like 40 minutes or something is just people partying back in Winterfell. Like post battle of the previous day, we have our funeral, and then it's people drinking, playing games at tables, and people hooking up with each other. Some of it's fun, once again, but we've only got 3 episodes left, and we have to resolve who's going to sit on the throne. We got to finish Cersei, and we got to put someone on the throne. 3 episodes. And we spent half of an episode with people partying in Winterfell. What are we doing here? Like, why is this what we're doing with our time? And so you have Daenerys begs Jon not to tell anyone about who he is. Jon, unable to lie guy, said, no, I got to tell my sister. I can't be dishonest with them. I have to tell them. And she's like, information will spread. And of course, that's exactly what happens. He tells Sansa. Sansa tells Tyrion, and immediately spreads very quickly. And you can see Daenerys, they're trying to set up what's going to happen with Daenerys very soon. So they're showing her mental state not being great. But, I mean, in this episode, they just had this gigantic battle with the dead. And as an audience member, it looked like their armies are gone. Like, it just looks like they're totally wiped out. There's almost no one left that's not a main cast member, based off what they showed us in the previous episode. They're decimated. Sansa says, hey, can we rest a little bit? And Daenerys is like, whoa, I gave you my armies and you won't let me have yours? Like, wait a minute. Did she not see what happened yesterday? Like, are we not acting like humans anymore? Like, why can't you wait a week? Beyond that, King's Landing, not close to Winterfell, very clearly established. So even this idea of like, well, we need to act right now. Okay, well, it's going to take a long time to get where you're talking about going, no matter what. So if you take a week to, like, you know, people to recover from battling skeletons and zombies, probably not unreasonable. No, we got to go right away because we've only got 3 episodes until the show's over with. So like, what? And I think the episode, I think, has more passage of time than is clearly presented in it. But it's just goofy the way some of this plays out. And then having Jaime hook up with Brienne of Tarth, it just like such a weird plot point that they're trying to have some final payoff for 5 seasons of bonding between the two of them. And having them hook up is not the right answer. Like, Tyrion goes, hey, are you a virgin? So Jaime's like, I can fix that problem. Ooh, that is not a pleasant plot line. It's weird. It feels like we're using the character. It's not intelligent. It's not like smart. Doesn't feel like, oh, you're ahead of us. You thought that through. It just feels like we got to do something here. So they hook up for a week. That's what you got for me. Okay. Well, I wasn't even there and I feel cheap and used. Not a fan of that. So a bunch of other stuff starts taking place too. And Daenerys is taking a fleet to King's Landing because, of course, we have to go to war immediately. She's flying flying with her dragons, or 2 that are left. Out of the blue, Euron shows up, kills a dragon, and wipes out the fleet. And like just decimates them, like easily defeated. And, you know, Daenerys' best friend gets taken captive. So she's not very happy about that. And it's just like, you're just like going along in the episode, and all of a sudden a dragon is like decimated, killed, taken out. And making it clear like these weapons are a gigantic threat now. Like, oh man, how on earth, with only 2 episodes left, is Daenerys going to be able to beat King's Landing if they have this type of technology that can take out a dragon so easily? It's a great question. Let's see what happens in the next episode. But it just felt so inconsequential. Like these dragons, when the first one died and came back as a zombie, is a huge deal. This one dies, it was just like, it just kind of happened. One more thing happened. Just flying along, and whoop, they lost. They didn't see the fleet of ships over there. Flew straight into a bunch of arrows, or I don't know if you call them arrows, a little bit more than an arrow. Dragon dies, just like that. And get to the end of the episode, Jaime decides that he's not going to stay with Brienne of Tarth. He has to go back to Cersei. You're like, wait, what? 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 Why is he going back to Cersei? What's going on here? How is this? What? What? Why did you have him hook up with Brienne of Tarth just to leave her to go back to Cersei as soon as Cersei was? What? How is this satisfying? How is this a completion of his arc? Oh, he doesn't have an arc. It was like he was going somewhere, and then we revert back to exactly where he was at the. Okay. And then, of course, the other thing that happens is Daenerys arrives with her army, staring down at King's Landing, and they're trying to do like their tough guy talk to each other. And Cersei just beheads Daenerys' best friend, thus making Daenerys very, very, very angry because of that. And this leads us to the final 2 episodes where things go wildly off the rails. Episode 5, The Bells. And from here on out, pretty much every decision they made, I just thought was pretty well terrible. Like everything they did is like, well, that wasn't satisfying. That was not what I would have done. So right off the bat, Varys doesn't trust Daenerys anymore, so he's trying to let everybody know about Jon. Which you'd think they're setting up a major plot line of a bunch of people know about Jon, so when we get to the end of it, there's the conflict is that everybody... You'd think, no, that's not where this is headed. We just needed a moment for him to be a traitor, so Tyrion turns him in. He gets roasted by a dragon. That's where this is headed. Okay. That's a plot point that I think could have worked with more time. The idea that Tyrion turns him in because he still believes in Daenerys. But at this point in time, you start being like, why is Tyrion still kind of going along with this? Like, what? He turned his buddy in? He knows what's about to happen. What? Huh? And then Tyrion really not wanting the city to be fried explains to her if the bells ring, explains to everybody, if the bells ring, they're surrendering, you've won. So we get ready for our battle. Daenerys flies in and it does all this stuff to set up people kind of moving around in the city, trying to get to a safe place to get away inside of certain walls and stuff like that. Does a bunch of stuff to kind of give you some sort of idea of the geography of the city and what's a threat, what's safe. Okay, that's good. So we get to the episode. All the walls are covered in these. All right, we got the Iron Fleet in the water. We got the walls covered. Everybody has these scorpion deals that killed a dragon in the last episode. They're everywhere. Daenerys flies in, takes out the Iron Fleet by herself. Daenerys charges the walls, takes out all of the scorpions by herself. Which, like, they didn't do a single thing to explain why in the last episode, scorpion surprise attack kills a dragon, big gigantic threat. And in this episode, she can just outmaneuver them. Doesn't do anything whatsoever to try and explain that. So, Daenerys takes out all the wall protections and then blows up the wall so all the armies can charge inside and start claiming King's Landing. And there's no back and forth whatsoever. The whole show is about the battle for who's going to sit on the throne. We've been building towards Daenerys versus her. And throughout season 7, they had their back and forths where Cersei had some victories, defeated Yara, took them captive. Daenerys comes back and then she's outsmarted in a couple of moves with what Cersei does and what Jaime does. And then she flies in with her dragons, takes out the army. There's a back and forth to it. And then we get to this season, or in that episode they established the scorpion couldn't take out a dragon yet. So then we get to last week's episode, scorpion can take out dragon now. They are a threat. So they're doing all this back and forth, and we get to this episode, and it's, well, we just need to resolve everything. So of course she just defeats all of it. She's just able to. What? There's no explanation as from last week, the last episode. There's no explanation as to why all these defenses that you showed us can kill a dragon, that can surprise, that they're not easy to just evade. And now we're in the next episode and not a problem whatsoever. And then likewise, I've been saying all along Cersei's an idiot. In this episode, you literally have her in her castle and she's saying like, oh, don't worry about it. We got the scorpions. And then people are like, they're all broken. Well, don't worry about us. No one's ever made it into the Red Keep. They're like, what? Like, there's literally a dragon flying around, blowing up walls and everything. And she's like, don't worry about it. We're safe here. Okay. Alrighty. So eventually, Daenerys' dragon and the armies just pretty easily just destroy all the King's Landing defenses. All this stuff about Cersei buying an army, doesn't really matter too much. All the new weaponry doesn't really matter too much because it's a dragon, so she just won. She just wins. Daenerys just wins. So we get to a moment, the bell is ringing. They've surrendered. They've won. And of all the things that could happen at this moment, all the things I'm thinking, because I'm thinking, yeah, I know Daenerys is going to turn bad. I've heard that. So I'm thinking she's going to fly in. She's going to roast the Red Keep and kill Cersei, not realizing a bunch of people ran in there. And so Daenerys was going to end up killing thousands of people, innocent people on accident, trying to just kill Cersei. Or she doesn't know that Cersei keeps explosives everywhere. So she roasts the wrong place, blows it up, kills a bunch of innocent people that she wasn't intending to do that. She does something vicious. She does something aggressive. She does something after they've surrendered. But it was towards someone that wronged her. No, that's not what they went with. They went with, she is Hitler now. She's full-blown Hitler, and she just starts toasting everyone in King's Landing and just like flying around, roasting everybody. And the Unsullied, now they too are butchers, and they just start slaughtering people. And this leads to like 45 minutes straight of just utter chaos in King's Landing. And I still don't have words to say for how much of a ridiculous plot point this is. That everything that they've done with Daenerys, they throw it out. No, she is the Mad Queen. She's just like her dad. She'd never been established that way. She established as harsh, having a killer side to her where she crucifies slave owners. But that it was always set up as, those are slave owners. Those people are butchers, so we're going to be brutal towards brutal people. But she was also always about protecting innocents. Like, that was so clearly established as who she is. And what do they go with in the end? She is the worst character on the entire show. Everyone that put faith in her all along, based off the information that they saw, it was the information that we saw, everybody that trusted her thought that she was something special and different. They were wrong. She was just mad all along. She's crazy all along and could go along and slaughter tens of thousands of people. Something far worse than what Joffrey ever did. Something far worse than what Cersei ever did. This person we've been rooting for this whole time and seen her do a bunch of great things. No, she is the worst character on the show. She's the most evil character on the show. That wasn't established. There was no reason to think she would be that prior to the exact moment where she decides to torch everybody. But they just immediately just decide to throw everything out, and she's Hitler all of a sudden. I can't fathom it. And I saw all kinds of people like, no, I mean, they were, for seasons, they were setting up the fact that she had a killer instinct. They were setting up the fact that she could be the Mad Queen. Right. But every time the question was posed of, is she the Mad Queen, they always answered it as, no, she's different from her father. That's the answer the show gave for all these seasons. All the things that she did, like when she did something brutal, someone would come to her and reason with her and she would back off. She could listen to them. And so she had a harsh side, but she was always reasonable. She wasn't mad. She wasn't crazy. She just had a harshness to her. She had an abrasiveness to her. And you could even say she's lost all of her advisors. She's in a bad state of mind. She's aggressive. Oh, sure. There's a bunch of things in that moment that you could do that would feel reasonable. Once again, she charges the Red Keep and starts torching it, not thinking about the fact that other people are in there, not realizing there's explosives in there. So you can make her responsible for thousands of people dying, but without it being her going, I'm just going to kill innocent people. Because they did not establish that she's someone that would kill thousands of innocent people. So I had some issues with that plot line. So from there, it just kind of didn't really matter what happened. Because it was like, all right, wow, you really did just ruin your own show instantly. So you get the Hound goes in to battle the Mountain. And this should be like this cool moment, but because you're just so angry about seeing Daenerys torching everybody, this just doesn't matter too much. It just feels kind of inconsequential. It's kind of nice that, he's able to take out the Mountain, I guess. It's kind of a nice moment. You have Jaime come to Cersei's to die with her, I guess. And so of everything they did with Jaime to try and transition his character, he reverts back to, I just got to go back to my sister. I just got to do that. And the final moment, you finally, at the very end, Cersei has some humanity and realizes, oh crap, I'm going to die, and so's this baby. She doesn't want to die. Like, it just snap clip, like for the first moment in her entire life, she realized that her actions have consequences, and oh no, this wasn't going somewhere happy. And so she ends up dying in a cave-in. Of all the ways to have a satisfying conclusion where someone kills her, Arya kills her, anybody, like all these actual enemies that she has, she looks like she might have, all these things that could have happened. No, it's just there's a cave-in and she dies from that. That's what you got, really? I mean, they the way that they found the least interesting, the least satisfying conclusion to so many different plot lines is just astounding. So Arya runs around, doesn't die, jumps on a horse, rides out, and Jon is pretty upset, but at the same time, not upset enough about what he saw. But to me, I thought this episode was much worse than the final episode, simply because it meant there were no good options. Like, this was the one that just kind of torched the end of the show. So it's like, okay, I don't really care what happens from here because you ruined everything. You ruined Daenerys. You ruined everything with what you did here. And that brings us to episode 6, The Iron Throne. And, sorry, I'm rubbing my nose. Anytime I talk too long, my nose starts itching. And anytime I have too many stimulants, my nose starts itching. And I went to the gym shortly before this, so I'm both on fire right now and my nose is itching like crazy. So, we get to the end of the episode, and Daenerys has these huge armies set up in King's Landing, which right off the bat, you're just kind of going, where are all these people coming from? Because didn't all these people die fighting the zombies? Like, I don't even understand where these armies are coming from. But like, you have the Unsullied trying to just slaughter people in the streets while everyone's please, the sensible people trying to stop them from doing this. But once again, they've turned into just genocidal killers. So that's all they're doing. And then we have Daenerys lands, walks forward, and has this cool shot of dragon wings behind her. And then she goes out and she gives this fascist speech about conquering the entire world to make it a better place. And once again, we're just like, it just had so far down this path of like, how is this the same character that we saw in all the previous seasons? Because she doesn't for a second pause to reflect on the fact that she just killed tens of thousands of people. She goes straight from killing all of them to, she's Hitler and this is a better world. We're breaking the wheel. We're making it better. We've freed the people. They are free from life. They are now free to do whatever they want in the afterlife because I killed them. And there's no pause. There's no reflection. She just went from, I want to free people, I want to help the oppressed, to slaughtering them. And maybe if there'd been 2 seasons of build-up here of showing her the insanity of all of this, that the power went to her head, maybe, but I still don't think I would ever buy it. By this particular transition based off who they established her to be for the first 7 seasons of the show. And so, yeah, she's now just full-blown Hitler, gonna take over the world and kill anyone in her way. and you can freely join me or I'll kill you. Okay. Right. Sure. Yeah, we got there real quick. That escalated quickly. So Tyrion gets arrested for freeing his brother. He's going to be executed, of course, because he's a traitor, and he's fine with this. He throws his hand button down because he's mad about it. Jon goes to see him, and then we spend like 10 minutes debating whether Daenerys is evil or not. Jon recites all of his lines from this season, since all of his lines this season are, "She's my queen and I don't want it." That's what he says the whole season. Says that again to Tyrion. And Tyrion's like, "You have to do something. You're the only one that could do something. You're the only one that has a claim to do something." So he goes to go see Daenerys. Like the very next scene, goes to go see Daenerys. She has no guards around her. No guards whatsoever. Jon's just let in. She's insecure. Let her to torch a city because that's how, like, where her state of mind is at. She thinks that Jon is a threat. She kills anyone she thinks is a threat, but lets Jon in with no guards. Sure. Okay. Right. They have a conversation about, and he keeps saying, "You're my queen." And she's like, "I'm going to conquer the world," giving her whole speech again. She doesn't back down any on bombing the city, nuking it. So Jon thinks the best thing to do, give her the old knife to the gut. And Jon ends up killing Daenerys, which, I don't mind that happening because she's Hitler now. So if you can kill Hitler, that's probably a good thing to do. So kills Hitler. And then the dragon, upset about all of this, torches the throne? Like, I get, okay, he's a Targaryen, probably can't die from the fire or whatever. Torches the, I don't know why the dragon knows to do that. But, so the Iron Throne is now gone. And then it cuts forward to several weeks later, and we have to decide who's going to be on the throne. Tyrion is still in prison, but somehow is the one, like, leading the meeting. And it's like a very weird assortment of random characters from, like, surviving characters from the show trying to decide this. And of all the paths we can go with this, they decide that Bran will be the king. I mean, it's like, just take a list, every character on the show, put him in a hat. Who's the most random one we can come up with? Bran. The argument for it of he's got a great story. He has such a great story that season 5 left him out entirely. Such a great story that I've repeatedly said in my reviews, his is the most boring of all the storylines of all of them. The most interesting thing in his story was the Hodor. Hodor is the most interesting thing about his story. He doesn't have a personality. He's lived so much in the past that he can't connect with reality. He's repeatedly said he doesn't want to be the king of anything. He has no leadership skills. He has not been set up as a leader. He has not been set up to have any of the skills required to do what is asked of him. So let's make him the king. Really? Why? Like, what? Because he's a crippled person and went north and came, like, how is that? That's a better story than Jon Snow? The bastard who's in fact not the bastard. He's the guy that has a claim to the throne, that while he was still the bastard rose to be the king of the north. That guy doesn't have a better story. I mean, that's like a lot of heroics in there. The guy that kept, wherever he went, he made friends and enemies at the same time by doing the right thing. I mean, like, of all the weird random picks, Bran. Who's the least satisfying person? Bran. Like, there's nothing about that. It's like, yeah, Bran, that's good. This is Bran. What? I just don't. Like, I get the Unsullied don't like Jon. But who cares? They're war criminals. They're actual war criminals. Who cares what they think? And that's just so fundamentally what's the problem with so much of this is that they spent everything on this show setting up the fact that Jon would actually be a great king, that people naturally follow him, that he does the right thing, that he's honest. He's the antithesis of everything that's been in King's Landing. All of these power-hungry people that are manipulative liars that just want power. He's an honorable person that people trust, that consistently does the right thing. And everywhere he goes, people follow him. And he has a claim to the throne. It is established every single plot line thread, everything you can do to try and say this is a guy that would be a good king. Like, and you just, in the last few episodes, she was the guy that saved the entire country from the army of the dead by spending 3, 4, 5 seasons, whatever, trying to prepare to battle them. And he's the guy that brought everybody together. Even though people kept saying, don't go get the wildlings. People kept saying, don't go get Daenerys. All these things he did are what kind of made it possible to win. But he killed Hitler, so, you know, the Unsullied don't like him, so it can't be him. So let's go with the guy that has no leadership skills, that disappeared for a season, that is disconnected from reality. Let's put him on the throne. Okay. Yeah. Oh, why not? Sure. As long as Daenerys is Hitler out of the blue and, you know, Jaime's hooking up with Bran of Tarth and then heading back to Cersei immediately. Sure, why not Bran? Why don't we do that? But once all this happens, then Sansa goes, by the way, we're never kneeling to anybody, so the North is a free kingdom. Says this right next to Yara. Yara just goes along with it. What? Everyone else is just fine with this? Like the North gets to be free? Sure, what? Okay, fine, whatever. And then we send Jon Snow back to the Wall. The character that's been the most honorable heroic the entire show. The guy that just stopped Hitler. The person that, the avenger of the person that slaughtered all of King's Landing. The person with actual claim to the throne. He's once again thrown to the wall. As if this is supposed to be a satisfying ending, because I guess he goes off with his wildling friends and we always got along with them. So maybe, no. This is, like, I just don't... I don't, it's like, of all the possible conclusions, like what would be least satisfying, they consistently picked the least satisfying thing you could do with these characters. And then they have this goofy scene of the council in King's Landing where it's like Bran is the master of coin. What? What is this? Guy's like a hired hand to kill people. That's what he does. That's his skill set. And now all of a sudden he's on this council. Why? Why would you ever do that? Why would you trust him? How is this possibly a good idea? And they start like joking around, and then Bran is like, though the dragon disappeared, I'll go and find him. And so he checks out. Like, he's the king, and the first thing he does is like affirm what all of us were thinking, like, this guy shouldn't be king. He's checked out all the time. He goes, I'll just go find the dragon. Bye, everybody. You guys do everything here. I get, I talking to a number of people. Some people said, it wasn't that bad. It was just rushed. I don't see it. I don't see how any of these conclusions are satisfying. Maybe Sansa becoming kind of the head of the North. Maybe there's something to that that's like, okay, sure. She went on this big, long journey that kind of, maybe. Every other plot line is just the worst possible outline or outcome for it. The least logical. I can't fathom how they thought any of these were good ideas. I just don't know. I don't get it. Like, I don't understand whatsoever how anyone thought these would be satisfying conclusions for any of these characters. So there you have it. Anyway, that's my final take on season 8. I thought it was a disaster. I just, wonderful production design, terrible ideas executed far too quickly. And if they'd spent twice as long to tell this story, I don't think it would be that much better, because I just don't think that any of these are like, Arya being the one to take out the Night King, not satisfying. Dany turning into Hitler, not satisfying. Cersei dying because rocks fall on her head, not satisfying. Bran as the king, not satisfying. Jon back at the wall, not satisfying. None of these feel like the logical conclusions. And it just feels like they took everything that was set up, everything that felt like, yeah, this is what we're building towards, and subverted our expectations and did some random stupid thing instead. Well done, boys. Well done. You did it. You subverted my expectations, and you burned through all of the goodwill that you had for the first 6 seasons. It's pretty remarkable. Like, I actually wondered about that for years, or the last 2 years. I've wondered about that because people have been just hate on Benioff and Weiss. over these last 2 seasons, and I thought, it can't be that bad. Like, okay, it was rushed, okay, but it can't be that bad. And then I watched it and I went, no, everyone was right. Like, this is so unbelievably bad on so many levels that I fully understand why people don't care about what they're going to do next. Because it legitimately feels like their skill set is adapting, and that's it. That, like, I legitimately thought people were overreacting, and then I saw it and I went, no, people were right. Like, these guys did not understand the show. They did not understand where it was headed. They did not understand what makes for a satisfying conclusion, and they're not smart as writers. They're just not. There wasn't anything in these answers that was smart. It just felt like cheap, bad answers. There you have it. There's my take. Check out the rest of my reviews over there. Check out my ranking of the seasons right down there. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much.